I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, September the 12th, brought to you in part by the nationalbeefwire.com. Get on the National Beef Wire and find all kinds of markets. You can find this video every day. Also have a lot of different channels featuring different things within the industry. On the spotlight today, we're looking at Wilcox Livestock Auction in Wilcox, Arizona. Down there in southern Arizona in the desert, I tell you what, they have got some of the hardest little cattle down there, and you guys will absolutely love them. They have a good run every Thursday. You can view and bid right on dvauction.com. So check out Wilcox Livestock Auction on channel 6026. Circle the Wagons, that's the title for today's visit. I had to borrow that or steal it, or actually he told me to use it, but my good buddy, my amigo Jesse Larios down in Southern California, he's a feedlot operator down there, but if you think about that, that's a very fitting title there, because when your settlers were running from the savages and starting to get overtaken, at some point they had to just stop and huddle up and kind of use each other for cover, circle the wagons a little bit and fight back, and that's where we're at. We got a positive board here in the middle of the week. Where that come from, who knows? Just decided that it was time that it had bled long enough, and maybe it's time to run it up a little bit. Do I think this is the bottom? I think that that 97 that we had earlier in the week could be the bottom on your cash fats. I think we've got a lot more suffering to do on the feeder cattle end, especially whenever these big fat ball and calves start hitting the markets, and we get the big wide temperature swings as we get into the deeper into the fall. People start having health problems with their new purchases, and we're going to have heavier supplies than what we're really able to choke, even though I do think there's going to be less cattle showing up here next spring. This is going to be the last of the big supplies, and people haven't been marketing their feeder cattle like they normally would the last 6 weeks or so, because they've been so scared of the market, just unsure what their cattle would bring, if they bring anywhere near what they need, and then the biggest thing is they've had plenty of grass. For the most part, their pasture conditions are outstanding, so they didn't absolutely have to sell the cattle, so they've been holding on to them, which means we're going to have a lot of them to choke as we start moving further on into the fall, and likely when we see weather change, when you guys in the southern plains start getting busy planting wheat. We've got a chance to get some moisture here the rest of this week in the southern plains, in Oklahoma, in the Texas Panhandle, places where they really need to get some kind of moisture before they plant that wheat. It is so dry, especially in the Texas Panhandle. Of course, it's been raining all year out in Oklahoma. They're living right, but guys will eventually have to dust it in here in the next few weeks if they don't get something to happen. But it always helps to get a little bit of moisture in the ground, to at least to get to that stuff to kind of take off before it gets too cold. But when we get a weather change, then we're going to start to see all those cattle coming on top of all the cattle that normally come that time of year, and it is probably going to be more than the market can choke. But the board was up big on Wednesday, and we just have to take that. It was great. Now we look at what happened. We've been trading fat cattle all through the week during this down market. What it seems like your fat cattle sellers don't understand is, even though we've got monster supplies of market ready cattle in the southern plains mostly hitting here right now, and we've got a lot of captive supplies, better than 80%, probably working towards 85%. Your packers still need to buy negotiated cattle on the spot market. They still need them, and they can't seem to get that through their heads. These guys that are selling them, or I say sell them, they've actually been puking them in this down market. They puked them all last week, and then Monday they couldn't wait to start puking them again at a lower price. And during normal times, when the market's fairly stable and your supply and demand balance out pretty good, your packers never get interested in buying cattle until at least Wednesday or Thursday. They still need the cattle. Sure, they want to buy them cheaper. Why wouldn't they? But so we opened up on Monday, and guys were selling cattle cheaper. There was some $97 trade. It's the lowest we've had in 3 years. Second lowest we've had in 9 years. And so we're looking at that and we're thinking, boy, this is really, really sick. But guys can't wait to sell them to the packers. But then the packers using this packer psychology, and it's almost like playing with children. They're just so much smarter. They're so much more developed in this game that we call negotiated trade. It's unfair. Of course, it's not very hard to get four heads together. Let's say there's 400 negotiated cash sellers. That's probably pushing it. I don't think there's near that many. Maybe if you include all the guys in Iowa that only sell maybe once a year, there might be 400 of them. And they just, they're mavericks and they're individuals, and they just will not stick together. But they've got to start circling the wagons here, just like Jesse said. But we had some $97 trade on Monday. But there was $96 rumors. Found out that it was just a few loads of junk cattle that they got bought at 96. Probably should have been bought more dollars back of the regular market than that. But your packers were promoting them, trying to establish that market at 96. Well, all of a sudden the board goes up pretty good on Tuesday, and then goes up a bunch on Wednesday. And your packers are out there on Wednesday morning. Your packers bid 97, they bid 98, they bid 99, and they bid $1. I didn't think they needed cattle. I thought with that plant down in Holcomb, Kansas, that we were just backed up so bad that they didn't need any cattle, and they were going to be doing good to get their formula cattle harvested. That's their packer psychology, guys. Why would they bid every increment all morning, Wednesday morning, if they didn't need the cattle? They need the cattle. Now, a lot of people saw that on the Fed Cattle Exchange, which I wish people would get behind. I tell you what, if we would get considerable consignments on that Fed Cattle Exchange, it would change the industry. But you guys got to get behind it. Everybody's just a little fearful of that deal, but had a light run on there. But most people do kind of take a look at it, and we saw that we had two pins on there that were PO'd at 99 bucks. And this was before they really started getting with it on all the bidding. And a lot of people think that it helped the market out, the cash market, or at least the bidding, because there wasn't a lot of trade. But it was just very curious to me that we had $99 PO'd lots on there. They didn't take the lots in Kansas and Texas, but they were PO'd on there, which is very curious to me. Which would have been even more curious is if they would have sold those cattle on there, because both of those yards were 5 River yards, and it would have been curious to see the tracks from the load and chute going somewhere besides JBS out of there. It would have been even more curious and maybe comical if those that were bidding those cattle had bid them up to maybe $1.05 or $1.10 and seen what happened there. But anyway, let's talk about what happened with the board on Wednesday. October live cattle up $2.35 at $98.50. December was up $2.40 at $103.62. As you went to your out fronts, they were not as much higher as your early months, but April is trading up there at $114.22. Of course, April's always your highest live cattle contract. September feeder cattle up $2.17 at $136.07. October up $2.97 at $134.02. Your fat cattle trade, and like I said, it was just a very curious morning that went on. I was traveling back from Ogallala, Nebraska at the Western Video Market, getting back here to the Texas Panhandle, and poor cell phone coverage, and just trying to keep up with what all was going on was quite a challenge. But it was interesting. But like I said, we saw, as the board started going up, we saw 97, we saw 98, we saw 99, we saw $1, all bid by the packers that claim that they don't need any cattle. Iowa ended up with a few confirmed sales at 102. likely on some of their really high quality cattle. You know, wow, it's amazing that 102 is an eye opener, and we're thinking, wow, that sounds high. But then on the other hand, some of their dress sales sounded pretty cheap. They had a few dress sales at 157, and then they had a few more at 159. Nebraska saw a few live sales at $1, and then a few dress sales from 157 to 160. And when I say a few, I'm talking less than 1,000 each place. So that's not nearly enough to establish a market. Kansas actually had a few that were confirmed sales at 99, and they couldn't have been those POs or they wouldn't have went in there. But anyway, let's talk about your box beef cutout values. And these beef purchasers are getting I don't know if you want to call it revenge, but they're really turning their nose up on some of these prices that the packers have put on their price sheet that are monster high, and they're backing off of those things, and packers are having to take less money. Boo-hoo, you guys put away the tissue paper and don't be crying too many tears for them. Choice cuts on Wednesday afternoon, $219.89, down $5.49. Selects at $198.40, down $2.58. Let's talk about your feeder cattle markets. Your real-time index on Cattle Market Central late in the day on Wednesday settled at 135.62. That was up $1.11. So that's the first time we've seen a significant up on the daily move outside of on the weekend or over the holiday weekend there for quite a while. But your big sales, OKC West, Reno, Oklahoma, had 6,400 head, including the 5,000 feeders that they had on Wednesday, so kind of a light calf run. But feeder steers $1 to $4 higher. Good to see them have a positive market on a Wednesday, because it seems like Wednesday is always a downturn, but they've caught in a couple of good breaks here, especially Wednesday. Feeder heifers steady to $2 higher. Of course, calves on the light run were not well tested, but sharply lower, but that was before everything made the turnaround here middle of the week. Now look at an individual quote that I picked out of El Reno here that shows how things have kind of turned around. 104 head of 818-pound steers in El Reno, Oklahoma, bring 138.25. Winter livestock, Dodge City, Kansas, they finally had a good sale, 3,800 head. That's about the best sale they've had since the King of the Ring sale that they had there quite a while, several weeks ago. But it was a struggle for the market reporter there to find the trend, and I looked at the automated market report, and I kind of agreed with that too. It was a little bit all over the place, but basically the bleeding stopped. You had some markets that were higher, kind of depended on what the offering was, but they did kind of build a berm underneath that, and the bleeding kind of stopped, and doing decent there in Dodge City, Kansas. Bassett, Nebraska. And I know you guys are rolling your eyes and you're saying, oh my gosh, you're going to talk about Bassett anymore. I can't help it. Bassett, Nebraska. I've been up there, watched it. It's real. It's a real thing. I saw Shane Caxor there at Western Video Market sale there. He was excited about the offering that he had for Wednesday. But it's just amazing when you bring some of the best cattle in the world in, the Sandhill, Nebraska cattle in there, and then you've got local feeders there, and then you get them in an auction environment with competitive bidding. Even in a down market when things look doom and gloom, it's amazing what can happen. I realize that that market is unattainable for most of us, but it's still interesting to listen to see what some cattle are worth. It's still 4 legs and a tail, not that different of a commodity than we have everywhere else. But Bassett, Nebraska had close to 4,000 head there. Look at this automated market report right from the block on Cattle Market Central, and you can just see some of these prices, and I'm going to give you a rundown on the best tested weights. 496 head of the 7-weight steers averaged 767 with a weighted average price of 153.65. 7 weights, guys, not 5 weights. 666, that's kind of scary, head of the 8-weight steers averaged 874 with a weighted average price on the heavy 8 weights at 141.67. And then 440 head of the 9-weight steers were on the heavy side too. Average 967 at 133.79. Not 113.79, 133.79. Look at some heifers, 900 head, some big consignments there of the 8-weight heifers, averaged 840 pounds at 135.01. You'd be hard pressed to go anywhere and find steers that would average that, especially 900 of them. 516 head of the 9-weight heifers, average 947 at 126.84, and then a couple of stick out individual quotes on your Bassett sale there. 181 head of 873 pound steers bring 146.25. That's more than $10 over your index, which is based at 800 pounds, and those are at 875. And then look at this string. 257 head of 791 pound steers in Bassett, Nebraska bring 154.75. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.